Welcome to Success in Motion. Join us as we dive deep with top leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, uncovering strategies to grow, scale, and succeed.
Welcome back to the Success in Motion podcast. I am your host, Alex Burho, and today we're joined by George Salas. So George is the CEO and founder of real estate investment operations and coaching companies, Empress Capital, and Creative STR Wealth. So he's a sought-after serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, inspirational speaker, fund management, and elite short-term rental investing operator. He has done a lot in those different spaces, and we're really excited to learn from him and his experience today. So George, thank you so much for joining us today.
Alex, thank you very much for having me here, man. I hope I can bring the fire to your audience. Super excited, man. Let's go.
Yeah, let's just jump right in. So I've heard a little bit of your background in history, and I thought it was fascinating. So let's go ahead and just jump in. Catch us up. How did you get to be where you are now with that CEO and founder of all of those different things?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my story really started in a third world country, Peru. I was 6 years old, and parents were getting a divorce. My brother and I were, super young, little ones that we didn't really know what was happening. So one day, mom says, "Hey, we're going over to grandma's." We fly over to this other city. We're now moving into this adobe house, and we don't know what's going on. So for 9 years, we lived in this adobe house with my uncle, my grandma, mother, and brother, right? And half of that house had collapsed because it was made out of adobe. So we had some issues with the ceiling. Bloom. We lived in one side of the house, right? And talk about being poor. Talk about really coming from absolutely nothing. At 15 or 13-ish, things start changing a little bit. Mom, and I were migrating over here, and brother also, and we moved here. And a couple things happened. One of them, we're coming into this brand new world, and with a new family, right? Mom remarried, and second is like, and energy wise, I like to consider myself as somebody with a lot of drive. So where am I going to channel it now? As just a little kid, I see that in my son. A lot of energy, didn't know where to channel it. So I started in the hospitality industry as a waiter, bartender, and I grew into starting a marketing company that hosted and produced events around Houston, Texas. This is 2007, okay, right before the Great Recession there. And what happened between then and 2017 is I grew this hosting and event production company, and I produced many, many events throughout 10 years. At year maybe 7 or 6-ish, there's a few transitions. I'm really wanting to get into ownership. I want something bigger for myself. I want something better. I know I can do it. And all of a sudden, I find an opportunity. Someone approaches me. I end up investing over 300,000 over the course of 3 years into the build out of this project. 2 years. And it was someone else's project. I was coming in as a limited partner, someone with not a lot of say, so just an investor. And I was the marketing arm for that business. So we opened up this venue in 2016, and a year and a half later, the whole entire thing gets shut down. This is a nightclub / event space that I came in as an LP. Every dollar I saved for 7 years out of those 10, I lost. Ooh. We get shut down, and now I am rock bottom. That's where I was at. So I'll stop at the rock bottom. So I'll turn it back to you right there.
Yeah, well, I think we all want to know what happens next. You have this rock bottom, you lose everything. What are you going to do from there?
Right. Well, as an entrepreneur, as especially someone, I already came from nothing, right? I was able to really build out this business / solopreneur in my hospitality career, and it went all the way to the top, right? And I was one of the top in my industry, and we were doing really well until I got into something I had no idea about, which is investing and partnering and joint venturing and being a limited partner. I did not know anything about that world. Lesson number one there, go do some due diligence on anyone you partner with. Lesson number two is don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I hit rock bottom. I lose everything, Alex. And then I say to myself, I am not staying where I'm at. I've got to get up harder, right? Lesson learned. I still have that fire. I'm broke, but I'm not broken, right? I am not defeated. And that's that mindset, right? And that, I think that mindset came from just coming from nothing, right? From another world
Mhm.
and bringing that fire. So no matter what, we all go through ups and downs. A lot of people just stay down, right? So I went and I said, I'm not staying where I'm at. I went and learned real estate, right? I used the network I built to be able to partner up with different people. And I started going to networking events and attending seminars and buying books to listen on audio and going to these, 3-day weekends to learn real estate. But that turns into a lot more, right? I
And
tend to go really deep, so that's where I'm going to leave it at. So I
yeah.
went all the way deep into real estate.
So my question for you is what made you decide to dive into real estate? Because again, you kind of hit that rock bottom. There's unlimited options. You could go any direction you wanted. What inspired you to go this route?
I always knew for some reason, Alex, I always knew that I could do something better than what I was doing then, right? I could be something bigger than myself. And I thought real estate was perfect for me because I had a large network and I thought real estate was where I could create wealth, right? And then that mindset has carried over, but there was also a need. The need was I wanted to get to rental properties, right? And then the reason for that is why, right? I needed cash
Mhm.
flow. So the real reason was I wanted to create a better life for myself and I wanted to create cash flow in real estate property. So that would be the avenue. For me, that was the thinking. And then at the end of that tunnel, there was that idea of how could I contribute to others down the road, 3, 5, 7 years down the road, right? Those were the main reasons and the whys, right?
I love that. I love how it's both I need
Thank
the
you.
cash flow. Here's your immediate need, as well as how can I like position yourself so you can help others more. Okay, I like that.
Exactly.
So,
Thank you.
as you've been making this transition, and again, coming from your background you did, what would you say has come easy to you that maybe would be a struggle for some other people?
Um, you know what? One of my biggest I've developed this skill and it was first a skill of networking, right? And then it became the skill of creating strategic partnerships and being out there. So I can understand people much easily and find ways to create value with people, right? And I believe sometimes the ability to connect with someone and develop a relationship that's a little bit farther than your normal is difficult for a lot of people because a lot of us out there are introverts. Like I'm 60/40. I'm 60% extrovert, 40% introvert,
Hmm.
right? So does that make sense?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of people say your network is your net worth. So that's a really good skill to have. So as you are utilizing your
Yeah.
network and building your business, what would you say are some challenges that you faced? What hurdles have you had to overcome besides, just your rock bottom, but kind of the more day-to-day obstacles? What have you found?
So going back to the starting, right, from day one, when you're starting a business and you don't understand that as a CEO, ultimately you need to be doing the most leverage activities. I was doing everything. I was not using systems and processes, and I was doing everything by hand. Why? Because I didn't have the skills or the leadership, like this technical skills to be able to put together the systems, and then also the leadership to lead other people to do it for me.
Hmm.
So it was very difficult just having any time for myself. I was working 16 to 18-hour days,
Ooh, that's a
three to
lot.
four times a week. I'm telling you, man.
Oh,
And why? Because when you're launching something, you're starting something, sometimes there's just so much to do when you're starting a business, right? So other than that, Alex, I think I was also struggling with cash flow, and I thought that real estate would immediately solve that. Okay. But it was completely the opposite. It was like
Hmm.
real estate, you need a lot more cash flow. And people are like, oh, you can do, you know, fix and flips with no money down. You can do this with no money down. You need money for everything, right? Unless you want to work 18 hours a day, right? So I still couldn't figure it out, and I was just in the wrong strategy at the wrong time. I started with fix and flipping and getting partnerships. Somebody put in the cash, somebody would do maybe the renovation, or I would do the renovation, the GCing, the entire front end, the sweat equity, and then someone else would put in the money to do the flips. So that's where I was like, I'm gonna take all these things on my plate, and I didn't know how to manage them.
Yeah. And I think that's honestly something a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners struggle with is being able to delegate what you can. What have you done to find or determine what activities are best suited for your skills and capabilities and what are best to hire out or give to other people?
There is a system, right? It's a quadrant system, and I'm sure you've ran into it, Alex. That talks about what you're good at, and then also what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you're really you love to do and you don't love to do. So at first I was doing all of it, but then I started realizing that I was frustrated and angry, and I was tired. So I started studying productivity and figuring out, delegation of tasks. I wanted to hire a VA. This is like 2019, right?
Hmm.
2018. And I realized that I was doing the things that I hated and I was not good at. So think of a quadrant. In one quadrant there is what you're good at and you love doing. The
Hmm.
other quadrant is what you're good at and you don't love doing, right? The other quadrant says what you're not good at and you don't love doing. And then I think the other quadrant is like the devil's vortex or what you hate.
Yeah.
I was in all four of them, all over the place. And when you, as an entrepreneur, or you, as just a regular person, do the things that you love, but then you also do the things that you hate, that's where the frustration and the anger came about. And I felt that until I started realizing that that was the reason why.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I love
Mhm.
that. So then, as you progressed into growing more in the real estate, talk to us a little bit. What have you been able to do with it now? Where is that real estate out in the nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the time that I entered the space in 2018, first year, I brought in about $300,000 in revenue. Lived on
Wow.
$20,000 my first year, just of fix and flips wholesaling in a first set of 10 short-term rentals. Then I started refining, right? Refining and trying to figure out like what is it really because I was working so much, tired, and my health started deteriorating. Like I'm 33, 34 years old, and I couldn't sleep. I was so tired. When a pandemic hits, it was tough. Okay. Then education was one of the things, Alex, that really made the game change there, right? I started educating myself through books even more, personal development, and really understanding, about myself and creating that structure, journaling, and I'm super deep into personal development. So from there, I decided to stick with what I needed immediately, which is short-term rentals created cash flow, and then also what I could see long-term being something that I wanted to build, for my family, which is wealth creation through short-term rentals and acquiring assets that I owned. So in 2020, I started, actually 2021, I had already owned a few fix and flips that I had in there. And then 2021, after the pandemic, 'cause we didn't do anything. Nobody did anything in 2020. I really I pushed the trigger, right? I pushed the gas full force. And because of the knowledge that I acquired, the skills and my losses and where I was, I started trimming my business because we were at 50 short-term rental properties in the middle of 2021 without the proper systems to manage 50, right? We had a team and it was just a lot of work. So we wanted to trim get rid of what wasn't working, and just stick with what was working. So from there till now, I met my wife in 2020. We married in 22-ish, so I met her at the beginning of 2020, so right before the pandemic. And from there, we start building our portfolio in 2022, right? And we've been able to build till right now we own almost $10 million dollars in our own assets, our own real estate, and we just launched our fund, but it wasn't always like that, right? At first it was tough, and then we started to kind of realize what worked, and we trimmed down. Today we only operate about 18 of our own properties, but in the fund, we obviously are going to have more. We're buying a portfolio right now. It's a $12.5 million portfolio, in St. Louis, Missouri, all high-end experiential short-term rentals. So first, just to give a recap to the audience, right? At first, if you wanted to create something beautiful in real estate or just in business, right? Maybe focus on honing your craft at first. Don't try to grow too fast. Okay? Get really good at one thing, aka, like we got really good at creating beautiful experiential properties and they became short-term rentals, right? And before we were doing all kinds of properties. We were doing condos, apartments, we were doing rental arbitrage, we were buying. Today we're sticking with our niche, what we're best at. Okay. Then grow it from there. And then now that you have unit level economics or one deal honed in, now you could replicate, right? That's not what I did at first, 2018, because I was like wholesaling. I was doing fix and flipping, and then I was doing short-term rentals. And then when I honed in into short-term rentals, I was not even niching down because I was doing all kinds of properties. So my biggest lesson here is hone in your craft. Become so good at whatever you're doing that they can't ignore you. That people are going to be, astonished at what you're doing, and they're going to want your help. They're going to want to invest with you. They're going to want to partner with you.
Absolutely. And honestly, when you're that good at what you're doing, you become the clear choice for people to pick. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, so you talked a lot about how you were running crazy hour days, 16, 18-hour days. And I know a lot of people, when we're younger, we're able to do that. But as we get older, we want to try to slow things down. And I know the hot word right now is passive income. And how do you create passive income, especially as you're looking toward retirement or as you try to replace your active income? What
Mhm.
have been your thoughts on generating this passive income?
Here's what I tell when people tell me, hey, I want passive income. The word passive income actually does not exist to me. You can make
Mhm.
it semi-passive, right? So
Yep.
for someone like us, like yourself, right? And we're active investors,
Hmm.
right? And we could pitch passive income. It's as close to passive as you can make it. But for us, for my definition of passive income, it would be doing the minimalist amount of work that I can, and then the way we do that today, you know, is we have our own property management company with our own team. So anything that we invest in within our own portfolio, it becomes passive to me because I hand it over to my team. Now, not everybody can do that. So for somebody that's just getting started, whether it's a long-term rental or an apartment complex or you're buying a single family home, your property has to have enough meat on the bone to be able to hire a management company. And then it becomes almost passive because you still have to do, the entity taxes, file the assets, and I mean, all the work that comes in after the income comes in, right? You got to account for that income.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to create passive income, but they don't realize that often you do have to put in work towards that passive income. So I like that
Hmm.
perspective there.
Thank
Now,
you.
as we're wrapping up our interview, what exciting things do you have coming down the pipeline in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, then that's a great question. So this year, our goal is to buy a couple more portfolios. We are honing into this one, right? So that's at the big scale, right? So, at the smaller scale, we're launching our firm, and the another service offer in about 2 months. This maybe could be Q1. Our goal is to have on the market a fully done for you service offer to acquire these six-figure a year short-term rentals, experiential short-term rentals. So that's our short-term goal, Q1, long-term goal, buy a couple more portfolios. And then, I mean, I mentioned this online. We're working on buying a property management business to merge ours with it so that we can sustain scale, right?
Yeah.
Because if we partner in the front end, we have a lot of properties, someone's got to manage them. If we want to make them semi-passive, right, you've got to have a team to manage them, right?
Exactly. Again, it goes
So
back to what you were saying earlier. You make sure you have someone else who can do the stuff to make it easier on you, let you do what you love. I love it.
that
Okay,
is all what it's all about, brother.
perfect. So, George, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. If someone is like, I want to talk more to George, I want to learn more from you, where should they go? How should they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that, Alex. So, real simple, George Salas, the number 360.com is my personal social media site. All my stuff is there, So thank you very much for having me here, Alex.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you on here, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into Success in Motion. Want to share your story? Visit successinmotionpodcast.com/guest to apply and be featured on the show.